My name is Kaila McCracken, and I'm a financial planning analyst. The finance department at MEMIC handles MEMIC's financial accounting, financial planning, the ins and outs of payments at MEMIC, reporting to our internal leadership as well as people outside the company. And as a financial planning analyst, my job is to project our financial position in future years. I also do work on our risk management, so I make sure the company knows what risks we're facing and what actions we need to take to make sure that the company is protected in certain events. I also do a number of custom reports for MEMIC's leadership team to make sure that they know what's going on financially with the business so that they can make decisions with all of the information at their disposal. So one risk would be making sure that the business is able to continue even in the case of a global pandemic like COVID-19. So we evaluate I'm sorry, my cat. Okay. So one risk would be that MEMIC may not be able to continue normal business operations during a pandemic like COVID-19. So a lot of work goes into making sure that if anything happens that could disrupt the flow of business, our employees are still able to do their jobs. So that means making sure people have access to MEMIC's systems remotely so that if for any reason someone has to suddenly start working from home, they have all the tools that they need to do that. And it means that we have all of the computer programs we need to stay connected remotely. So if we can't meet in person, we can video chat, we can use phone calls, and these are all things that MEMIC had implemented prior to COVID-19. So we ended up being in a pretty good position to have everyone work remotely right away because we had done a good job of mitigating the risk of not being able to be in the offices to do our jobs. Well, the cool thing about my job is that no 2 days are the same. So one day might look like I get a last minute reporting request from a member of our senior leadership team, and I need to build a custom report for them so that they can have relevant information to make an important business decision. Whereas another day might be doing something like this, whereas another day might be working with someone in the underwriting department to determine whether we're both using the same data to make decisions, to make sure that we're using consistent data across the organization. Another day might look like meetings from early morning until the end of the day with people in different departments to make decisions about risk management. So it's always a little different, which is one of the things that I really like about it. The aspects that I like most about my job are when I get to do problem solving, or when I get to meet with people across the organization to kind of come together to make decisions and to hear everyone's different perspectives on the issues the business faces. Yeah.
That's good. Talk a little bit about, in the context of what you wanted to be when you grow up and sort of your career progression. Like what did it look like to get to where you are?
Well, I wanted to be a journalist when I was younger, and I went to college for English. And I used to think that that was really different from what I'm doing now, but I think a lot of it's the same actually. I spend a lot of time. A lot of my job is explaining the company's financial data in a cohesive way so that it makes sense to people who aren't as familiar with the data. So a lot of times I'm using the data to craft a story, whether that's for an internal audience or whether that's for our rating agencies or other companies. So I think that my English degree has actually been helpful because it's helped in my communication, and I think it's made me more able to explain kind of complex financial things to people without a financial background in a way that makes sense. Well, I guess when I was in school, I didn't expect there to be the option to work from home and work remotely. So I do think it's really awesome to be paid to work in my house and have a comfortable setup and get to take a lunch break and take a walk with my dog and get a lot more of my day back. And I also didn't expect to kind of have so much free time just to like explore problems and try to find solutions to them and feel really empowered to structure my day in a way where if I need 3 hours to research something and learn more about something or take classes to make me better at my job, those are all things that I'm given the freedom to do during the workday. So I can become a more well-rounded employee and I can learn new things, and I get to do that within my 8 to 5 schedule without having to make time for that outside the workday. So I think it's pretty cool that I have the opportunity to learn new things and to grow my own skills, and that's part of my job. Number one is definitely communication. My job involves working with a lot of different departments to advocate for the finance department to make sure that we have a seat at the table when decisions are being made so that any decision that's made doesn't have a negative impact on our department, or to make sure that we are involved in the process when company-wide changes are being made. So it's important that I'm able to communicate finances needs with other departments, and it's important that I'm able to compromise and collaborate and use interpersonal skills to make decisions. And also, I think written communication skills have been really important, particularly during the pandemic, because we're not always meeting face to face. So a lot of times you're trying to relay information via email, and written communication skills are really important so that what you're saying isn't misunderstood and so that you can communicate concisely and effectively with people you work with. And also another skill I think is important is balancing wanting to work independently with knowing when to ask questions. I think it's really important not to spend hours and hours and hours of your time trying to research something if you could reach out to a teammate or a supervisor and have them answer your question really quickly. But at the same time, I think it's important to know when you probably can find the answer to something, and to know how much time to spend researching that answer, because it is really satisfying when you can come up with the solution to something yourself. But it's definitely a skill, and it takes time to learn the balance of when to do things yourself and when to reach out for help. I recently built a report from scratch that includes a projection of what we expect to pay in the future on a certain aspect of the business. So I was able to use historical data and current data to estimate how much money I think something's going to cost in the future. And I was able to build that into a report that ultimately went to our CEO and CFO, and they're able to use that to inform their decision making, to make sure that when they're making strategic decisions down the line, they can kind of anticipate how much certain things are going to cost. So that's an example of how data can be used, and how if you know what you're looking at, you're able to help the company strategically by getting the right information into the right people's hands. It was a long process. It took several months of sourcing data and figuring out how to present it in a way that would make the most sense to the audience receiving it. So it involved me sort of working through the logic of how to predict how much this would cost down the line, and then going to my supervisor, showing her the report, her providing feedback, and then ultimately, actually this morning was when it finally got sent out to all of the intended recipients. And it feels really great to know that the work that I'm able to do is that impactful to the company, and that having only been here for a few years now, I've learned enough about the business that I'm able to play a role in informing the decisions that our company's leadership is making. My advice would be, don't necessarily think about like the job title you want or the specific company you want to work for, or like the specific role you want to play in an organization necessarily. I would say think more about what you want your days to look like, how much autonomy you want over your workflow, how like, do you want a set schedule? Do you want more flexibility? How do you want your work-life balance to look? What do you like to do while you're working, or even in school? Do you like when you're problem solving? Do you like to know what your day is going to look like? Do you like every day to be different and kind of unexpected? I would say think about what you like doing and not necessarily what you want to be called. I enjoy my job a lot. I have a lot of independence. My supervisor makes me feel really empowered to make decisions for myself and to advocate for myself. I really like my coworkers, which is a huge part of your day-to-day work life, is whether you like the people you work with and whether you feel like you all work well together. I guess I would just add that I think sometimes finance can seem like a dry or not very exciting career path, but it's a really cool department to work at in an organization, because you really get to learn a little bit about every other department, and you get a really clear sense of what the company you work for is striving towards. So the two skills that I think are most important and that I use most frequently are knowing when to ask for help versus when to try to do something yourself, and also communication, whether that's written communication in an email or talking to people face to face. Being an effective communicator is one of the most important skills that I've learned in school and in the workplace.